So this is another kind of intro Klali Purim Shir, and follows in the footsteps of the last couple of weeks about Purim affirming the incredible inherent value of Am Yisrael and of each one of Am Yisrael, and how much that lies mamash at the heart of hearts of Purim. So the Gemara on Daf Gimel Amud Bet in Masechet Megillah, we have a statement from Rava. Amar Rava, Pshitali, it's simple to me, Avoda u'Mikra Megillah Adif. When it comes to Avoda, that means the service of the Beis HaMikdash, of the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash. When it comes to Avoda and Mikra, we just actually just started. Avoda Mikra Megillah Adif Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. Because Rabbi Chanina says that when it's time to read the Megillah, the Kohanim have to stop what they're doing and go out and hear the Megillah. So Megillah trumps Avodah. And Talmud Torah Umikra Megillah. If it's a question of Torah or reading the Megillah, Mikra Megillah Adif, the reading the Megillah comes first. Midasamcho Shabes Rebbe. Because Gemara said earlier that in the base medrash of Rebbe, everybody would stop what they're doing to go hear the Megillah. Here, you see from here that Megillah is not the same thing as learning Torah, even though what you're hearing is a part of Tanakh. But Rava calls it bittul. It calls it Mikra Megillah Adif. It comes first above Talmud Torah. Very, very interesting thing. Because hearing the Megillah, and this is something that is amazing Bal HaTurim on the Megillah. Megillah says, "V'nishma pisgam hamelech b'chol medinos machuso ki rabahi." There will be the expression of the king will be heard in all of the countries of his realm, for it is great. So that pasuk, in the simple meaning, is talking about this decree this ridiculous decree that Achashverosh puts out at the beginning of the Megillah, that all wives have to look to their husbands, right? This funny thing, each and you read it with a funny trope, because it actually was setting the stage for some light, and it was actually setting the stage for the king's later decree about killing the Jews, Chas v'shalom, that people didn't take it quite so seriously because the last decree was so incredibly ridiculous. But in any case, that Venishma, says the Baal Turim, is a hint to both Torah and Avoda. Because the word Venishma appears when it comes to Torah. Am Yisrael said, Naaseh Venishma, right? We will do and we will hear. That was our statement of acceptance of Torah. We're going to learn about that in the next year, about Maral. And there's also a Venishma when the Kohen Gadol walks, because he has little bells on his me'il. And so the Nishma Kolo, Bevola Kodesh, the exact part of it, he'll be heard when he walks into the Beis HaMikdash. And he says, there's three Venishmas, and the Venishma of the Megillah comes first. And this is my Rosh HaKolel, Rabbi Tabak said, a beautiful thing, because Torah and Avoda is like specific times where we're trying to connect to Hashem through learning this piece of Torah, or through doing this type of service. What the Megillah is the Nishma Piskal HaMelech, the existence of the king will be heard in all of the farthest reaches of its realm. That's something that is deeper than any particular act of Talmud Torah or of Avoda. It's just that God is there in the kind of background, in everything. So it comes out, it trumps the two of them, and it's hinted at in that pasuk. But that's what this Gemara is talking about here. But Rava continues, and he says a very, very important thing. He says, we know that Talmud Torah u'meis mitzvah, if Chas v'shalom someone passes away and there's no one there to bury them, of course it's called a meis mitzvah. It's a mitzvah on whoever finds it first to bury them, right? So the meis mitzvah comes first. Well, how do we know that? Because it's a brisa, mevatlin Talmud Torah, l'tzasa meisach. That's what's called that we should stop learning Torah in order to bury the dead who right? So it definitely trumps Talmud Torah. And avoda meis mitzvah adif also. A Kohen, if there's nobody else around, he's allowed to become tameh and thereby ruin his chances of doing avoda for at least a week. As there's a brisa that says that also. There's an extra word about the v'la achoisai when it's describing the people that the Kohen is allowed to become tameh for, and it's meant to include a meis mitzvah, somebody who died and has no one to bury them. So we see that a meis mitzvah also trumps both Torah and Avoda, right? Megillah trumps both Avoda and Avoda, and the meis mitzvah trumps both Torah and Avoda. But what? So now we go in. So now we do that. Like they both won the semifinals. So now the showdown: Megillah versus meis mitzvah. Now which one of those wins? Right? I understand, right? And the Gemara says, Megillah meis mitzvah himinayu adif. Mikra Megillah adif shum pisumei nisa. Is Mikra Megillah come first because it's publicizing the miracle? So it should come first. It's so big, God's existence. Oh, Dilma meis mitzvah adif shum kavod habrios. Or does meis mitzvah come first because it's the honor of the creatures, of the creations, of the human being is lying there, needs someone to bear. Basadabaya Hadar Pashta. After he asked it, he then solved it. Rava, Meis Mitzvah Adi. The person who needs burial comes first. Amar Gadol Kavod Abriya Shedoches Lo Sesesha. Because we have a very important teaching that the honor of the creations of the human being trumps a lotas in the Torah. Which lotas say? That's the lotas of lotas, or all the rabbinic mitzvahs. And at the end of the day, the Megillah is a rabbinic mitzvah. And even though it's such an important rabbinic mitzvah, because it gets to the very root of faith and the sense of God and the furthest reaches of absurdity, which is such a great message to give us a sense of God's presence in all the twists and turns of every story, everywhere in the universe. Even so, the honor of a human being comes first. Honor of a human being comes first. Kavod habriyos. And so, even though it's very, very rare that this actually happens, that there's somebody lying there, having passed away with no one to bury them, and it's also time to read the Megillah. It'll hardly ever happen. I think it shouldn't ever happen. But the fact, this is one of the great things of what study of Talmud is about. The understanding the priorities and understanding the divine intention behind different possible scenarios, even when they're extremely unlikely, gives us a depth of understanding. Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're studying on and comparing they're off, they're both, because the world stands on the thing.
Oh, right? Milut Chasadim, right?
Milut Chasadim. So it's like, how is Megillah like Milut Chasadim? How to make mitzvahs like Milut Chasadim?
For sure.
For sure, that's what it is. But what interests me is how is it that Mikra Megillah somehow has this aspect of this third leg, which is in some ways, if you have to throw away two of them, right? The leg of Milut Chasadim, which is the leg of Abraham, right? That is the one that you have to stay with.
Yeah.
And so granted, you hear about Mashiach Manot and kind of the Yomim, which is embodied in Megillah, and about Achid on Israel, and about and thereby in some like the mission, but what is it that makes Mikra Megillah, the pursuing Mitzvah of Mikra Megillah, what is it that makes that on this level almost of Gimel Chasadim? So within Gimel Chasadim, the Mitzvah comes first, I understand. Right. But otherwise, anyway, it's my question.
Amazing. That's very to the point. The concept here is, the concept here is, right? Let me just take a step back and just analyze getting drunk, because it's very, very important. It's you know what I mean? Maybe we have to have a few l'chaims first just to fully understand what we're talking about. But to really, Purim. What's exciting about Purim, right? I remember 2 years ago, before Corona, it must have been the Purim right before Corona. That last light that we had. I remember sitting with all the chevra of the yeshiva, and I was saying, don't listen to your Yetzer Hara. Your Yetzer Hara is telling you not to drink. Listen to your Yetzer Tov and drink more. It's like pushing everybody. It's funny how Purim comes and suddenly no one wants to drink. Purim night, everyone wants to drink. But the day, that's when the mitzvah is. And Pitom, everyone's like, I'll just have a coffee. It's fine, a little sip of wine. But when it comes the time to drink, God is behind you to drink. This is it, right? So this Pitom, nobody wants to drink. There's Mamash Yetzer Hara not to drink. It's so funny how it all switches around. The Reb Shlomo used to talk about, or at least Reb Shalom did. I think he said it the same Reb Shlomo about this, like vegan major hippie convert who in New York City, and she worked so hard till she finally converted. And then she's walking down the street in New York City and passes a hot dog vendor, which is of the world of flesh, it's like the grossest probably that you could get, who knows what are in those things, and she gets a whiff, and she's a vegan, bro, like she's hippie, like nothing to do with this stuff, but pitom, she like wants one. And she went and asked the rabbi what's going on. He said, it means it was a good gear, like now you're really Jewish, And anyways, so pitom and purim, who wants to drink? The thing is that the drinking has to contain. Right? What we just saw in the Gemara is that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi shut down the whole yeshiva for everybody to go hear the Megillah. The Beis Hamikdash, the Kohanim have to leave and go hear the Megillah. Megillah trumps Torah and Avoda. Why? Because Megillah is giving you a sense of God within the absurdities, within the stories, within the very backdrop of all reality, within mamish everything, and that's more foundational. But then the Gemara says there's something that is even more important than Megillah, and that is the burial of a Meis Mitzvah, and that's called Kavod Habriyas. And the Megillah, it doesn't call in here Gemilas Chasadim, it calls it Pirsumei Nisa, which is a sense of God that is highly personal and universal at the same time, and to my mind is very, very related to the mitzvah of getting drunk. Reb Nassan writes in Likutei Halachos that based on the Kisei Hari, there is no time in the calendar that has as much incredible wild kedusha as Purim. Nothing else. It is the greatest time. If Shabbos is like Me'ein Olam Haba, it's like Purim is like cut and paste day of Olam Haba stuck into today. It's like a mamish. It is Olam Haba. The thing is, you have to be drunk to be able to like tune in. You have to have like the antenna to be able to get the vibes. But the drinking has to be in a way that is informed by this value system over here. You have to realize that the Megillah you're hearing is deeper than Torah. It's not called you're learning another part of Tanakh when you hear the Megillah. It's called something that you're stopping your Torah study to experience something else. To experience, God's name is not in the Megillah. The whole thing. One of the Mefarshim, the Mordechai, actually, of all of them, says the reason why Hashem's name is not in the Megillah is because it actually served as a Persian legal history document, and so that's why they left God's name out, because it became part of our Tanakh, but it was also an undercover agent. Literally, if you get, what's the furthest thing to imagine from holiness is government bureaucracy. They went into the Persian government records. The Megillah itself is like a costume, and yet it contains mamish this sense of godliness that is unparalleled and gives us this tremendous sense of confidence that Hashem is with us in the deepest way. The trouble is that when you take a step sideways out of normalcy into the absurd, there's a danger. You can enjoy it, right? It's a gewalt. You've gone through the looking glass or whatever it is. You've jumped down the rabbit hole. You're in a different world. The thing is, when you're in that world and you're celebrating the absurdity of existence and you're just loving every wacky thing there is, there's a danger that the person themselves, right? You're supposed to get drunk ad lo yada, to the point where you can't distinguish between blessed is Mordechai and Christus. Amen. There's a danger there that you could get to a point where you're so drunk that you might think of your own self as just being a happenstance, that you just happen to exist and everybody just happens to exist. There's nothing special about people anymore. That's for shalom. You get to a point in drinking, there's a danger. What's the difference between apparently Rabbi Dr. Tversky that's all writes about this. They did some kind of a survey If a human being that you don't know is drowning, or your family dog is drowning, who do you jump in to save? And like something like half of the American people said they would save the dog. It's very sad. It's a really intense thing that to so the value that Mace Mitzvah trumps the Megillah is because it's not that Megillah becomes less important. It's what makes the hearing of the Megillah have its soul, have its proper priority. It's what makes this what they say on the street, the difference between a good trip and a bad trip, right? You're going into Purim. You're going into Purim. What could make it bad is if all the absurdity means that people are also just absurd. That's horrible. People are majestic, exquisite, divine, incredible beings. And it's all a celebration. Ultimately, the Megillah is secondary to Kavod Habrios. The Pirsume Nisa, the wondrousness that God creates, everything, and it's all shining, there's a danger there of saying also Kol Apim Shavim, which is a Kabbalistic terminology for heresy. All faces are the same. Everything's all the same. That's bad. Not all faces are the same. People's faces are different than animals' face. We don't love animals, take care of animals, but people are special. Are created in the image of Hashem. I myself am important, right? If that gets lost, we're in trouble, right? The mikre is a dangerous place to be in, and everything is all just happens to be, right? This is what Amalek said, Asher karcha baderech, that he happened upon. You could also read karcha, which makes you feel that you just happen to be there, and you're nothing special, you're not on purpose, right? The Meis Mitzvah, Reb Soloveitchik writes about the Meis Mitzvah that why is it that actually he's writing about someone who has one of their 7 close relatives, a mother, a father, a husband, a wife, a son, a daughter, 8 close relatives, a brother, sister, 8 close relatives. That if one of your most karev people passes away, you'll only have either a husband or a wife, right? Spouse is one, right? So the Shiva Krolivim. So that's my sister. If one of those close people passes away, you become patur, you become not liable to do any mitzvahs during that time until they're buried, right? I remember, this is a bit of a sad story, but a very sad story, but we once lost a daughter. It's a long time, it was 2008, our first child, and she was born premature. She lived 3 months. She lived more than 3 months. She lived 8 months. It was extremely, extremely sad, to put it mildly. And I remember the morning after, right, she passed away at night, and then we went home, and the burial was the next day, and I woke up next morning, and you still do Netilas Yadayim, but you don't make a bracha on it, for when you wake up in the morning. But if you want to eat something, you just eat it. You don't make a bracha. I did Netilas Yadayim from waking up, and then I didn't daven, didn't make any bracha, just went over into the kitchen, took a piece of bread, and just ate it. It was a very far out feeling, because I'm so used to washing and making a bracha and then making a motzi and not eating anything before I daven, maybe a cup of coffee, but so the contrast is extremely strong, and I really felt like this sense from heaven that like you get a day off, like just don't pray, don't do anything, have a piece of bread. It was very, very striking in a kind of a nice way, within the darkness of it. And Reb Soloveitchik writes, because all of the mitzvahs are predicated upon the majesty of the human being. And when a human being, that's especially one that's very close to you, passes away, and you see them become just an object, their body, because that just is just to be buried. So you've lost the very foundation of all the mitzvahs, which is the magnificence of the human being, and the fact that a human being really can cultivate a relationship with God. When you see that get lost, you can't be expected to do any mitzvah, because you're just in such a dark place. So you're just not there. And so this here too, that's the idea here too, that when there's a danger when you go in, Purim is an invitation into having a sense of God in all the absurdities. But it could become a bad trick. It could be, oh, so it's all absurd and it's all from God and whatever. And I'm also just happen to be here, but there's nothing special about me, nothing special about any person. It's all just the same. But because the Meis Mitzvah is more important, even though it doesn't have to actually happen, it shouldn't happen, but the Gemara is teaching you something incredibly deep about it, that where you're going, in order to be able to hear the Megillah right, in order to be able to get to that place of beyond distinctions, but you're going there with a love and an honor for people. Sometimes people get drunk and they don't honor people, right? And you can honor people in a crazy way when you're drunk, but if as long as you are, in other words, as long as you're really loving and honoring in a crazy way, but there's something before all the absurdity. There's a relationship that's there, and all the absurdity is only in the way that relationship and with Hashem and with each other gets manifest. But not that I myself am absurd or you yourself are absurd. We are amazing, exquisite, divine beings, and we're laughing, we're playing in this reality of that Hashem is making, and we're sensing Hashem within all of it, but not that we become unimportant. And this is a huge nekuda. This is a huge nekuda. Related to another thing. I need to end relatively on time because I know somebody's coming right at 8 to the Maral's here. So, well, I'm meaning online. I mean, I need to switch the thing and whatever. But we're going to learn soon in Maral about Am Yisrael saying Na'aseh v'nishma, right? We said we will do and we will hear. We will do and we will understand. And the Gemara says that when we said that, 120 or 1,200,000 angels came and gave each year 2 crowns to wear, one for each of those, right? And they were called what? Adayim, plural of Adi, which is, I think some people even have that name today in Eretz Yisrael, Adi. It means like a gem or a jewel, right? I have a friend in Montreal called, she's in New York now, Adiela. And she once for Purim, we all dressed up as our Hebrew names. And she had this like huge gem on her forehead. Anyways, so Adi, most beautifully, is what we wore on our heads at Har Sinai, and it's an acronym for Ad Delo Yada. The drinking of Purim makes you more majestic, not less majestic, more majestic, right? A good trip, Kavod HaBrios, is more important than anything, right? It's before all the drinking, before the Megillah, before everything is the incredible honor of the person. So Ad Delo Yada is only taking you more and more into that. And here, I just related a bit to this year. Shushan Purim is going to be on a Friday, pretty sure. That means we're going to go into Shabbos from Purim, which is a very fun thing to do. And it's a 3-day ride. So Chutz La'aretz and not Chutz La'aretz. The Chutz L'Yerushalayim Yud Dalet is Thursday, the Wednesday night Thursday, and then there might be a bit of a secret. I'm not going to say who, but there might be somebody getting married on Purim this year, possibly. Anyways, and then and then so now the yofi over here is that Yerushalayim is called the place of menucha, right? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai holds that when the Torah says you have not yet come to your place of resting and to your place of inheritance, that like the classic teaching you may have heard is menucha is Shiloh and nachala is Yerushalayim, but Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says menucha and nachala, they're both Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is also called the place of menucha. Why is it called menucha? So the Gemara in Zvachim Kuf Yud Tet says it's called menucha because it's the place that the Aron, that the golden ark has its resting place. And what's fascinating about that is that the Torah has a rule that you're not allowed to take the rods out of the Aron. You know, there were rods attached to it to carry it. Not allowed to take them off. So what is the Aron's resting place? It's not a complete resting place because if you would take the rods out, that means it's never going to move again, right? But it gets put there with the rod on it. It's ki'ilu, it could move. Is because it's the menucha that contains within it still a sense of journey. Still has. It doesn't, when you come to Yerushalayim, it's not that you're just there and it becomes static. When the Aron lands, it keeps the rods attached to it because it's still, you're always getting closer and closer to Yerushalayim. It's always, every time, we always have Aliyah L'Regel every time. And the Aron contains that within it. It's not the rest of Stam sitting still. It's the rest of something deeper. It's the rest of still traveling. And so very fascinatingly, when you add together the gematria, I don't usually do gematria so much, but when you add together the word l'chaim, so mem is 40 and lamed is 30. Wait, no, it doesn't. 1 second. Somehow, no. Without the lamed, chaim alone, right, is 68. The lamed is like chaim, whatever. So chaim is 68, right? 40, 10, 10, 8 is 68, and you add to that badei, which is the rods of the Aron. That's 16. 68 plus 16 is 84. 84 is Adi, is the jewel of the Adolor Yada. So the lechayims that we make on Shushan Purim this year in Yerushalayim, where you're going to have the menucha of Yerushalayim because it's the menucha of the Aron. You're going to have the menucha of Purim because it says V'noach, the Jews rested on the 15th in Shushan, and we rest on the 15th and enjoy Purim in Yerushalayim. So there's a double menucha mitzad, the place and the time, and then there's also Shabbos, which is also called menucha. So we can really connect to that traveling Aron that is at rest in Yerushalayim with our l'chayims and really have the best trip together. B'ezrat Hashem, that is tuned in to the Omek Kavod Habrius. Gewaldig, l'chaim. Any questions or thoughts before I finish? It's clear? You really should ask it. This wasn't 100%.